All right, I think we're live. I don't know if anyone's here yet, but go ahead and let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me. Still new to all this, so let me know if you're here. While we're getting people in for the stream, I'm going to start looking for some pieces I'm going to need for this build. This is kind of, again, a little bit off the cuff. I don't have too much set up right now. Just kind of picking up where we left off. I was out working on the cars just earlier, so a little bit grungy, but, you know, I told Chip I'd stream today, so we're going to do it. We're going to see what we can get done. So don't mind me while I start pulling stuff together for the build. Hey, oh, looks like Chip's here. Nice. So, Chip, here's what we got going on. So I printed the M6 feet, but I don't have any M6 by 30 bolts. That's one thing we're gonna have to add to the kit. So I've got some 6 by 35s. So I'm trying to decide if I want to use some 5mm by 30s, and that will well, actually we might be able to get away with, what is it, Nick? Is it 35? Let's see. It's like we've got, yeah, M6 by 30, but I wonder if we could get by with even a shorter one or a longer one. Let's see. Yeah, maybe a spacer or 5. So even if I use a 35mm, there we go. I don't have the second camera set up this time. Decided to save myself the trouble, but I think even this looks like it will work. Let's see. Dropping stuff again. Yeah, I don't see any reason that wouldn't work. This is what we're looking at right here. If I can orient that. So I don't think that's a problem. This is a 6 by 35, so it's just a little bit longer, but again, I don't think we have a problem there. I will need some M6 nuts though. Let me reach into my bag of tricks, see what I've got. Either that, or I can just use M5s for now, and then I'll replace it with the M6s when I have time. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So if I do have some M6 nuts, they'll be in one of these boxes here. See, this is the difference. A miscellaneous bag of Bolt Depot versus nice organized kit. Of course, once we have all the right parts in there, won't have much need for this anymore. Well, I know I've got some somewhere, but I don't want to waste too much time looking for that. So I'm just going to do some M5s today, and I'll put some M6s in later. But for now, these are 5x30. Yeah, so let's go with that. It won't be super stable, but it'll be enough to work with for now. It's just a little bit more this way. There we go. Ooh, yeah. It'll barely work. But even then, put a spacer in there. That'll do for now. Yeah, that'll do the trick. All right, let's get some M5 nuts. Actually, I think these might have been in the other box here. Now I've reorganized everything, so I'm not sure where they went. I'm pretty sure this kit came with the hex nuts. Maybe that's another thing we need to add. Well, we do have 5 M6s. Perfect. That's interesting. So we have M6 nuts, but not the M6 bolts. So that's making notes of what we'll need to change in the kit. I can actually see chat over here now, so that's a lot better. Yeah, we can put an M5 washer in the hole of the rubber feet. That's what I was planning to do here. There we go. So that does work. I just didn't have. And yeah, if we use M5, then I don't know if the nut is actually going to capture it there. So we're changing our plan once again. Set this aside. And I'm just going to check if you used a spacer in here in the CAD washer. You didn't. That's the first time I think I've ever seen Chip not use a spacer somewhere. Which is good. I love using them, and I love that you use them everywhere. It's curious if that was in there already. By the way, Chip, feel free to edit the stream details. It asked me what category this was, and it defaulted to gaming, but it was like gaming, entertainment, travel, education. It didn't really fit anything, so I don't know what other people do for their 3D printer builds, but gaming was just kind of the default, so I left it at that. I also didn't really put a thumbnail in there, so it defaulted to your channel's thumbnail. So feel free to change that up if you'd like. Yeah, that'll work. Of course, we're gonna put in. What are these gonna use? I was gonna try to use my iPhone as a second camera today, but I'm trying to keep it simple. So, yellow. Yep. Oh, I've got to get better at this. So, in case you didn't get a good enough picture, pretty easy. We're using captured nuts here. I love using these when you have good access. It's not that fun when you're trying to do, like, for example, a hot end fan with these, because you just don't have the right access for everything and they start falling out. But for this, I think it's a great option. Nice and easy. So we just screw in the other side here. That tightens up. The nut is captured in there, hence the captured nut name. There's one down. Okay, just get all this set up now. Get my mic a little bit out of the camera there. Is it still just you in here, Chep? Do we have anyone else? I think I missed you. There's 3 concurrent viewers, but 1 views, so I'm not sure what that means. Hold up, slow down. Do this the right way. I did this on the last one too. Forgot to put the foot on. We've got to put the feet mounter into the frame first. We can't get access to the 2 holes later. Okay, so are you talking about this way? Oh, these are square ones. They're not the roll-ins. Okay. Okay. So is this just to confirm what you're talking about here? Because we use square ones here. 3 square nut. Do we have M6 square nuts? Do you know if that was in our original list? Are we missing those? Because if it wasn't in the list, I don't think I'm not seeing M6 square nuts. I've got M3 square nuts. Yeah, that is obviously oh, I guess you have that says an M5 nut, but this is an M. Oh no, these are M5s. Okay, so can we not use the roll-in T nuts here, Chip? I might be missing something, but if we can use these, then that makes it a little easier. Yeah, it's M5. Oh, no. I see what you're saying. Okay. This is why we're making a live stream, and then we're going to cut this up and edit it in the future for the instructions, because I just made a mistake. what Chip is talking about here is the bottom, these two holes. Oh, I've got the stream on the wrong thing here. Okay, so these two holes are going to go up into the extrusion, and there's, from the bottom, you need access to be able to secure these to the frame. And if you put this foot on, it covers those holes up. So we're going to take this off, and then we can put it in and not block ourselves off later. So for you guys, I'm going to make all the mistakes on stream so that hopefully you don't have to in your builds. So for future reference, step 1, insert the captive nut. And when those go on the bottom, yeah, so you do have to insert the captive nut first. Make sure you drop that in there. Don't screw the bolts in yet. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Maker Viking. Hey, I don't think I've seen you around before, but welcome. All right. So we've got the nuts in place there. Looking back at the CAD. We've got M5 by 20s. They're going to go into the bottom of the extrusion, and this is what I'm talking about here. I was putting this foot on, but it blocks access to those holes. We don't want to do that. Derek, welcome. Okay, just making sure I'm not going to block myself off here in any other ways. All right, so we've got that prepped. Let's just go ahead and get the feet prepped with the screws here, the bolts. And back over here. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 feet with the screws and the bolts. I'm just gonna say screws. It's a lot easier. But with the screws ready to be insert, we've got all 4 feet with the captive nut inside. If you do it like this, you're less likely to make mistakes. If you do it each one at a time, you're more likely to forget a nut or forget a screw, or like I did, put it in the wrong order. Now, let's clear this off a little bit. Turn this around so you can see. And in all 4 corners, back over one more time at the CAD. So these are square nuts here, but we're using the roll-ins, so don't worry about that. But because of that, again, we're going to look at these, the roll-in nuts, and the hole is offset. So you want to make sure you put that in. You know, if you're really close to a corner, you want that hole closer to the corner. In this case, we're going to be putting it in like so. So the hole is as close to the corner as we can get it. So it looks like that's how it's going to want to go in. Again, just using the wrench trick here. That locked in. It's been a while since I've done a build, guys, so I'm a little rusty. And being my second time live streaming ever, it's always a little added pressure, right? Okay, you guys saw how I did this one, so I'm going to turn it around so I can see it, so I'm not working at a weird angle here. Said it in the last stream, but if this is something I decide to do a little more regularly, I will invest in a better streaming setup than what I've got going on here. But as of right now, kind of trying it out, seeing if it's something that I want to do more in the future. Yeah, this part might actually be easier. Put it up like so. That way you're not fighting gravity. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. So, I mean, hopefully I don't eat my words on this, but I'm putting the, let's get a good picture here. The holes are closer to the corners so that we have a little more room to work with. If it doesn't work, we'll edit that in the final instructional video. Okay, so now we're on to, said these were M5x20s. Don't think I have those out yet. Oh no, I do. Perfect. M5x20s. Did you use washers here, Chip? No washers here either. Okay. All right. So I'm trying to just line this up, roughly speaking. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, that is going to want to fall out. So we're going to turn this back on its side. So again, try to make it so you're working with gravity, not against it. Come on. There we go. We're going to try to get one started here, and then the next one should go a lot easier. Nice. Okay, that feels good. Get a little stuck, and you're not quite there. These can just slide down just a little bit. Maybe I needed to slide it up. Maybe that was the problem. Yeah, I think that was the problem. So let's back this off. There we go. We're just going to barely just get that a little bit snug, not really tighten it too much. And why am I not getting grabbing? That's not happening. Let's try doing that top one first. Since we know the one on the bottom here. Man, I really wish I hadn't. better angle on this. But basically I'm not getting to this top one. It's not wanting to grab. But if we lift it into place, oh, there goes the captive nut. All right, nice and patience. Okay, so we're started on that one. Then we're just gonna slide it down. And I don't even know how good you guys can see any of that, to be honest. Let me know if it's no good, and I can grab one of the one of the other cameras and get it set up. Okay, that's much better there. So we're gonna just tighten a little bit here, and then we're gonna go in for the kill, of course. Give it another quarter turn. I cannot get that in there. There we go. Quarter turn. First stroke. And as I say that, I might actually grab one of these. Try to make my job easier. I think these are the right ones. Yeah. This is something I've really enjoyed on this build. The dual ratcheting screwdriver, I guess. But makes it really easy to get access to stuff like this, and makes it a little bit quicker too than trying to turn an Allen wrench one turn at a time. So let's see how this does. Maybe it'll be a little easier. And 5x20 is right here. Yeah, it's just installing feet, guys. It's not supposed to be this hard. Cool. So we're just going to do one here this time. Get it nice and started. Oh, make sure it's going the right way. See that? Much easier. And I think that's about right. Let's see if we can get that in there. I think that needs to go down a little bit more. A little bit more. Nope, now I missed. Okay. Come on, baby. Back this up just a touch. Apparently I'm not lining these up very good. Let's try this again. Before we even go into that, try to make sure we can see both holes in there. inserted later, the current STL. You can also pre-insert the nut, put the center bolt in, the rubber feet to keep the hex nut in place. Okay, that's a good idea. That's the type of ingenious thinking you don't think about when you're on camera. Let's do that. These started. Find out where the nut went. Or just use the extra, and we'll get to that later. Okay. So what Chip is saying, we're going to insert this just to keep it in place. No, we're not going to put the foot on. Just the bolt. Like so. And now, it's not going to fall out on us. There we go. Okay, so roughly speaking, now we can maybe get a better view. Line this up a little better ahead of time. That one. Okay, I think we're in both of those now. Perfect. If you do decide to get one of these, be careful, it is easy to over torque it. They're usually, well, not usually, but sometimes I'll just go back in with this one because I have a little bit better of a feel for how much tension it takes on the end of the wrench, as opposed to twisting with the ratchet mechanism. Right there. Okay, 2 down. Thanks for the advice, Chip. That was a lot easier. Yeah, no, I don't think we can insert it later, so this is definitely a little bit easier the way you showed it. And even though this is going to be a little loose in here, at least the nut's not going to fall out. Okay. Try to angle this a little bit more this way so you guys can have some semblance of what I'm doing here. Okay. There we go. Much easier, much easier. It felt like they needed a little bit more turning to get that torque on there. But that might have just been the nut sliding into place. There we go. Uno más. Oh, wait, let's make this easy. Okay. Every once in a while I need to stop and just look at it and make sure I'm not screwing something up. So make sure I don't put it on sideways or backwards or upside down. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Do this lefty. Every time that starts to fall out, I get a little paranoid and think, oh crap, I gotta catch it. But that bolt's saving the day, stopping it from sliding out. Catch? Not quite. Has anyone here been playing the new Final Fantasy Rebirth? I gotta say, that came out and I was a little bit worried that I just, wouldn't see another project for a month. But gotta balance it out, Gotta take your time for your hobbies and your other hobbies, I guess. But usually when a game comes out that I've been waiting for that long, I end up taking time off work or just straight up not doing anything else for like a month. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm really happy with the direction they're going with the story. Combat feels awesome. I know some people aren't too happy with how they're kind of changing things up a little bit with the story, but I've been pretty happy with it. Okay, see, this is where I just, for some reason, can't get this angled in there. We're bringing this guy back in. And that feels pretty good. All right, quick break. Also, another random story. Took this out of my car today. It's a coolant outlet reservoir for the engine. I bought the car. It's a 2012 Mazda 5. It's the family car. And it failed exactly like this metal or plastic part that bolts to the engine block. And they just put a fat rubber gasket on there and hope for the best. But it fails every time. So this is exactly what the one looked like that I took out. There was only one replacement available at the time. So I, of course, put that one in. 2 years later, this one failed. And I'm taking a chance on another one that's made out of aluminum, which should do a lot better. Had 0 reviews on Amazon, but we're hoping for the best, so hopefully I don't have to do this again in 2 years. Okay. So now that those are all in there, we can actually put the feet on. start with the one that doesn't have that in there yet. Okay, so you might have this happen. You start twisting and nothing's happening. Might be that it pushed. Can I get the right angle? That is the question. Pushes the nut out right here. So you just have to make sure, the nut won't go anywhere, but you have to make sure the nut is engaged. Otherwise, it's not going to work. I mean, this is all pretty obvious stuff, guys. I'm just kind of pointing things out as I go. You need to use another wrench to pry it back in. By all means, make use of the tools available. Once it's engaged, which it's not, okay, once it's engaged, I mean, this is a little counterintuitive sometimes, but you can actually pull it out, which keeps the nut engaged. Then keep twisting. That will let you tighten it up. There we go. So for the rest of these, we'll just take our holding screw out. Put it through the foot. Same thing, I'm twisting here, but nothing's happening. So just get another wrench up there, hold it in place. Really just need to give it a couple turns. Once it's engaged, pull it out and go to town. The foot's going to have a little bit of wiggle room here. So, kind of center it where you feel it works well. It looks like if you center it here, it will just fit nicely into the middle of this, kind of somewhat square. Which is where you want it. Give it a nice torque down. Now these are M6s, and it's with a captive nut, so you can torque these a little bit more than usual. You're less likely to strip out aluminum or break something, so you should be able to torque these down a little bit heavier than usual. Trying to see if I'm going to get lucky on any of these with just grabbing the nut the first time. But no such luck. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way. I think the biggest part you have to worry about here is if you torque it down too much, you might deform the rubber a little bit. And I'm kind of seeing it spread out a little bit as I do that. And you don't want that. You want a little bit of bounce in there to absorb the shock. So maybe I'm going to take that back on my previous advice of torquing it down and just get it tight enough where it's not going to come loose. As you torque it down, the rubber kind of mushrooms out and it stops acting like rubber. It acts a little bit more like, hard plastic. You want this rubber to absorb that shock and not just transfer directly across the printer and from the ground. Okay, we have feet now. Now I can actually stand this up and it's not going to just be sitting on screws like before. Cool. I'm going to take just a minute to review the law or the instructions Chip wrote up for the Z-axis one more time. Make sure I get it right this time. We kind of went a little bit rogue on the last stream. I'm actually going to pull this up on a spot where you guys can see it as well. Discord pop over? I don't know if it did. Let's do it this way. There we go. So this, pop that back over here. This is the idea. So we're going to start by grabbing our bed frame. And Chip, let me know what you think. Should I start here by getting the bearings input or the bearings inserted into the parts first? We talked about the grub screws that would be holding them in. It's probably a good place to start is assembling those pieces, which I think I can pull up the camera, which I think are going to be these parts right here. Just dropping everything in. So we're going to be putting the bearings into the hole here, and then they're going to be held in place by 4, I believe, grub screws from the sides. Just double check that in CAD. Make sure we're not wrong there. So this guy. Just go ahead and isolate it. And if we hide this, oh, this has got heat insets. Which is fine. I just haven't done that yet. But yeah, it looks like four grub screws there. So let's go ahead and just do that. Set this aside. I think these are, yeah, we don't need these yet. Set those aside. Okay. This should, Chip, can you confirm? I think it looks like we're using the same size heat insets just about everywhere. Are there any other random sizes that we'll need to be aware of? Kit should come with plenty. Hold on. Kit should come with plenty of the heat insets we'll be using, which is great. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of buying a kit of 10 different sizes that I'll only use one or two of the sizes, or the alternative, ordering from AliExpress and waiting a month for it to get here. So we're not gonna do a tutorial on heat insets, but kind of talk through it as I go. Don't have the right heads for this. At least not in there. Interesting. I need to clean that solder chip. That is ugly. Same size insert everywhere. Hallelujah. I'd love to hear that. So you can do this with just a normal soldering tip, but of course, if you're not familiar with the specialized tips that can get a cleaner contact with the inset, make it a little bit easier to get a clean job done. Now, printer dimensions are right. Yeah, see, I love it. I love it when things come together just like this. Instead of having to kind of wiggle it in there and make sure it works, it should fit just like so. So the initial collet fits down in there so that it holds in place. Let's get some good focus here. So it holds in place before you insert it. That's not always been the case. If your printer's not quite dialed in right, it might be a little too small, or even worse, a little too big, and then your heat inset won't stay the wrong size. Yeah, so I am missing my M3 one for some reason, but we're just going to use this one, which will do good enough. Let me see if I've got a putty knife, because I like to use the cold press method to make sure it's nice and flush. Is that the right terminology? Heat or cold press? Anyway, the idea is you insert the heat inset like about 90% of the way there, and you get something cold, flat like a putty knife, and you can either push it down on top or flip it over and push it down, and that will cool the plastic, but also make sure that you have a nice flush, even surface. Of course, make sure you got everything plugged in. See, so I printed this, I think, at 250. Let's go with like 270. I usually just go about 20 degrees hotter than what I print at. I'm sure what you guys prefer, but seems to work okay for me. And let's just go ahead and get a few of these lined up. Now, is this going to need them on the back as well? Let me just double check. I don't want to have to do this twice. Nope. I think it's just the 4 on each piece, 2 on either side. Man, I can really smell that. Must have had some coating on that tip. Okay. And no fun close-ups for this. Just gonna get it done. One. Two. I usually pressed it in after just each one, but let's see if we can get away with 2 here. Yeah, I don't like that. So heat it up, get it nice and hot, and press it in. And it should give you a pretty clean, flush surface. I actually might need to heat this up just a bit more. Anyway, that's been my method. It's a little bit slower than just zipping them in there, but it does a pretty clean job. Turn that up just a bit more. Let's go 290. Juma, hey, how's it going? Thanks for joining the stream. I joked last time that I'd be doing heat insets for an hour straight on the next stream, but I didn't actually expect that to be the case. No, it won't be that long. Nice. Beautiful. Other side. Oh, hell yeah, you drilled your center plate. So are you doing a conversion then? You've got the center plate from an original Mark III? Nice. I've unfortunately never owned a Prusa. I am using a sample kit from Fabrico, testing it out here before we release it fully. And they were also kind enough to send me a cannibalized Prusa Bear. So I'll be using parts from that, but it doesn't have the center plate. So I'm going to be in search of either finding a center plate from someone that's getting rid of a Mark III, or maybe we'll try to fab something up custom to give this thing a little extra pizzazz. But still not quite sure what that's going to look like. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Actually, these, I don't think I've seen heat insets that just like land so perfectly in the right spots here. So even without doing this method that I'm doing here, they seem to do pretty nicely. That's all chips engineering right there. I never seem to get my insets sized that right the first time. I guess I should put it out there. If anyone does have a Mark III, or at least the plate that they're not going to be using, and if you're going to be a Remurf, let me know. Be happy to buy it off you. Unfortunately, the thing is so big and heavy, it almost costs more to ship than just to get one fabbed up locally. But let me know. Okay. Looking good. Don't forget to turn off your soldering iron. These grub screws, not sure if we have more than one set of grub screws in this build, so let's double check the dimensions. Looks like these are M3 by 8s. See what we've got. 3 by 8 hex. I know I saw a grub screw somewhere. Right here. And 3 by 8 set screw. That's another name for it. Grub screw, set screw, same thing. What we're going to be doing here, this should have, yeah. So if you look on CAD here, this grub screw, set screw has end for the wrench and another end that's, we hide this really quick, a pointy end. And these are going to go in and hold the bearing in place, and you don't need to torque these down. Chip says you basically just need to make sure they're making contact with the bearing, and between all three of them, they'll lock that thing in place. We shouldn't have any issues. So, is that in here? Nope. Get we are. This will also come in the Fabrico kit. Time is it? Man, how time flies. It took a lot longer doing those feet than I expected. I'll probably have to call a hard stop at 10 or here in 20 minutes, but let's see how much we can get done in that time. I hate to leave the Z-axis half done, but you know, I work on the cars, gotta sleep sometime, right? So if your printer dimensions are accurate, these should slide into place with not a whole lot of resistance and should sit nicely in there. For anyone that hasn't printed their parts yet, definitely make sure you get the dimensions dialed in just right before you go hog wild. When I built my snake oil, I printed probably half the parts before I realized my dimensions were just off. I didn't have the right E-steps, or, well, no, my E-steps are fine. My flow rate was too high, and I wasn't accounting for the ABS shrinkage, so everything, all the holes were just a little too small, and I had to either drill them out or use a circle cutting tool. What do they call these things? You know, practically every part I was sitting here widening it out, and that was just such a pain, and you know, some of the parts just weren't quite right, so I still had to reprint those. So make sure you print something that's going to be dimensionally important. These are a good start. What I did is I printed the Z rod holders, and then you should be able to take your linear rod, and they should fit in there, again, snug, but without like really torquing it in there. It should just slide in nice, and it should stay in on its own. And if your printer's not doing that, don't keep printing. Make sure you you know, adjust your flow rate, and there's even a setting in Prusa, the XY size compensation, and sometimes all it takes is a half a millimeter, or not half a millimeter, a like 0.05 to 0.1 millimeters, and sometimes that's all it needs, and it'll make those holes nice and snug. I was a little worried that, you know, because I printed these much later than my initial calibration. I was worried I'd get to this step and they wouldn't fit, but no, they're perfect, just right. Now our grub screws here. Now I always like to keep a few trays handy. These are the Infinity trays from Zach Friedman, if you guys are familiar with it. And whenever I'm getting close to the end of a spool, I'll just print a bunch of these, or you know, I'll even use a filament runout sensor. And you can see in this one, ran out of white halfway through, and you know, still continues to print. As long as you have a runout sensor and you can swap filament right through. But it's really nice because this was part of a different project, and so I can have a stack of them over here. If I need to go back to what I was working on 3 projects ago, I just have to count 1, 2, 3, go down. But they also make it nice if you've got a bunch of little screws you don't want to mess around with losing. Dump them all in the tray. And you know, there's some that have 2 divisions or 3, or you can even customize it and go as many as you want. But that's what I'm going to do here, so they don't roll away and get away from me. And then once I'm done, I'm just going to dump them back right into the bag here. So these are going to need the small wrench. Yep. So this is the 1.5, or the white. I'll ever think about the number, really. I just look at the color. And might as well get a nice close up of this. We're just going to keep going on this. And I'm not going to torque it like at all right now. As soon as I start to feel that resistance, as soon as you get to like this level, I'm going to stop. And maybe I'll do a little bit more after, but Chip says, you really don't want to over torque these, so I'm not going to do that. Now, for any mechanics out there familiar with the star method, I'm not sure if it applies here, but I'm going to do, if I just did this one, I'm going to do the opposite side. Just kind of a force of habit when you're tightening your lug nuts down on your wheels or anything that's a circular pattern. Want to kind of go in opposites to keep everything aligned. Kind of same thing. I'm going to stop right there. Not much pressure at all. Go back to the other side. And Chip, if you let me know, like, is that too little pressure? Is that not enough? Or is that about right? I think the grub screws are just about flush. See if I can get a good picture there. Not quite. So, maybe there's a room for an extra quarter to half a turn there. But when you're just getting these things inserted, if you torque one down too far, then the other side is going to, you're not going to be able to screw that in very far at all. It's going to be out of alignment. Again, this is kind of where I'm at. That might be a little too loose, but I'll wait to hear from Chip on what he thinks there. But that feels like I can't move that out with just my hands. I don't want to push too hard on that. But this thing's job isn't to hold in up and down. This job is to prevent left, right, lateral movement. So there shouldn't be a lot forcing this bearing in and out. That job is the lead screw. So, maybe this is all the torque you need. Yeah, so yeah, Chip says that, we don't need much pressure. So again, I'm just going to show you, look at my fingers here. This is all I'm doing. If I grab this, if your finger is changing colors, or if my fingers are all dirty from working on the car right now, but if your fingers are changing colors, that's probably a sign you're torquing it too much. But we're just kind of like that. I don't have a torque wrench for you, but that's not very many foot-pounds at all. No, we're talking inch pounds here. It's always easy enough to tighten these later, but if you tighten it too much and you mush out this screw, or if you get things out of alignment, you're going to have to replace the part. Again, go on the opposite side. I don't know if that matters much here, especially since we're not applying much torque, but some habits are just good to apply wherever you go. You can do no wrong with the star pattern. Unless you're tightening cylinder heads, those things have a whole different tightening pattern to them. Those are a little different. Kind of the same principle of spreading the tightening load out, but the the engineers have a very specific set of sequence to tighten those things down. And I'm just going to show, like, it's okay if these grub screws are sitting a little proud. They don't have to be completely flush. I'd rather it sit a little proud, but don't let your OCD convince you to torque that down to its flush if it doesn't need to be. Because again, they're a little proud, but this thing's locked in there. It's not moving. Gotta say, Chip, I really like this design. This is very clever. Now, from what I've seen so far, I think the Fabrico kit comes with extras for all the fasteners. I don't know if that's, I'm gonna have to double check if that's gonna be the case in the final kit as well. But I know they do that on some of their other kits, but makes it really nice if you lose one, or if you need a few extras, or if we change the design, you need like one or two extra of a certain screw. You should be pretty much covered with this kit. Okay, so that's all of those. So I'm going to take the extras here. Dump them back in the bag. Now this just goes back over here. I'm in the basement. I have a concrete floor. So when I drop small screws and stuff like that, it's just, it's pretty much a lost cause. See, that's there. What do we got? Let's do 10 more minutes here. Don't think we'll need this guy again, so I'm putting him back because I tend to lose those small ones more than anything. Okay, let's look at the CAD one more time. Oops, didn't want to do that. Okay, so we've got two on one side, one on the other, of course. So these two should be pretty easy. We're just going to attach those to the corners. I brought this out too early. What we need is the bed frame. And so this side, oops. Just trying to see how these extrusions are oriented. Okay, so on the side with open ends, So we're looking at it like this, right? Yeah. All right. So if you look at this is a rectangle. Here's the long end. Here's the short end. The short end has the uh, open ends on the extrusion. So if we come back over here, we're going to put it together like this. And we're going to just put one on each corner. And it looks like we're using M3 by 30s here. And Chip told me, don't forget to insert all the nuts beforehand. Otherwise you'll again paint yourself into a corner and you'll have to take it apart to put the nuts back in. All right, so in this case, we know we need the CAD one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, it looks like I may need to take this apart to insert the nuts here. So I've already assembled the frame. It won't be too hard to take apart, but before you put these extrusions together, make sure that you preload those nuts in. You know, if you get too far ahead of yourself and you're really in a pinch, you know, I've in the past on my snake, you can take like a 3 to 5 millimeter drill bit and drill a little bit of a hole in the extrusion so that you don't cut into it too far, but that gives you a little bit of a slot to insert the nuts. That's cheating, of course, but it will work in a pinch. Let me see if I've got the example here. Too many parts all over the place. Yeah, right here. Well, it's kind of ugly. I've still got some of the old dried loot there. But I had forgotten to do this. Didn't want to take the whole gantry apart. So, just took a little drill bit. It's kind of messy. But, drilled a hole there at the end. Just enough to put the hex nuts in. And it worked. Worked just fine. But of course, we want to do this build right. So, I'm probably going to do that off camera. I'm going to take this back apart. I'm going to preload the nuts. And let's pick this back up again. I don't know if I'll be able to do tomorrow. Let's see what is tomorrow. Is it Tuesday today? Yeah, so most likely Thursday. Pick this back up Thursday, 8 p.m., 8 to 8:30. I'll try to give you guys at least a heads up, a few hours ahead of time. If you're wanting to join the stream around that time, and we'll get this in the next stream. We'll install the bed and level it using the method Chip's got documented in the Discord. But yeah, if there's any questions in the meantime, let us know.